The Malaysian government has confirmed that the passenger plane that went missing more than 2 weeks ago crashed in the southern Indian Ocean with no survivors. While relatives of the 239 people on board digest the news tonight, the hunt for possible wreckage from the aircraft continues in remote waters off the Australian city of Perth. A grim conclusion after more than 2 weeks of fruitless searches that began in the South China Sea and eventually shifted to the Indian Ocean. It began this morning with a Chinese military aircraft spotting two relatively big floating objects off Perth and smaller white objects spread over several kilometers that could be wreckage from the Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777, which went missing 16 days ago. Flight MH370 was carrying 239 people, 154 of them Chinese nationals, when it disappeared without a trace about an hour after leaving Kuala Lumpur for Beijing. The Chinese sighting today was followed by the Australians announcing they had spotted two objects floating in the seas about 2,500 kilometers west of Perth. As the world waited for an Australian Navy ship to reach the area and confirm whether it was indeed wreckage from the missing plane, Malaysia's Prime Minister had a grim announcement based on the latest satellite data analysis.
This is a remote location, far from any possible landing sites. It is therefore with deep sadness and regret that I must inform you that according to this new data, flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean.
The news was passed on to anxious relatives of the missing passengers waiting in Beijing, dashing the last hopes that their loved ones may somehow have miraculously survived. Malaysia's flag carrier suffered another blow when a plane travelling from Kuala Lumpur to Seoul was forced to make an emergency landing in Hong Kong early this morning. It's believed the electricity generator on flight MH066 failed and the Airbus A330 was diverted to Chet Kok at around 3 a.m. The plane landed without incident and the 271 passengers were transferred to other carriers. Taiwan is facing a domestic crisis after dozens were arrested and more than 100 injured in a police crackdown on student protesters who stormed government headquarters in Taipei last night. The protesters have vowed to step up their campaign against a controversial trade deal between Taiwan and the mainland. ATV's Arthur Urquiola reports.
Defiant protesters remained on the streets of Taipei this morning, even after a major operation to remove them from the Taiwanese government's headquarters, the Executive Yuan building, descended into violence and chaos overnight. More clashes broke out between police and demonstrators, most of them university students, protesting against their government's controversial deal with the mainland to free up trade. Police resorted to using water cannon to disperse the protesters. The crackdown began just before midnight, as about 2,000 police officers were brought in to remove demonstrators who occupied the compound last night. The protesters locked arms to resist and had to be dragged away one by one. Reports quoted organizers at the already besieged Parliament building a block away as saying the demonstrators at the executive compound were from a different group than the ones kept inside the main chamber of the Legislative Yuan since last Tuesday. Police used water cannon on the demonstrators at the executive compound last night as well. There were more scuffles as they were forcibly removed. About 60 protesters forced their way through windows into the building and offices on the second floor and barricaded doors with furniture. However, officials later denied reports that the demonstrators broke into the office of the island's premier and insisted no confidential documents or information on computers had been compromised. Among the scores injured in the clashes, Many were bloodied and suffered bone fractures, protest leaders said. Embattled Taiwan President Ma Ying-jeou ordered the crackdown last night, saying the occupation of government headquarters was illegal and hampering the work of his administration. The Beijing-friendly Taiwanese leader has signed a series of landmark economic deals with the mainland, and he's insisting his latest pact is critical, not only for the competitiveness of the island's exports, but also to enter a bigger trade deal among 12 countries, spearheaded by the U.S. But his opponents fear it will hit smaller businesses and threaten the island's democracy by allowing Beijing to exert more influence over Taiwan affairs through investments in key industries. They also accuse Ma's ruling Kuomintang party of using undemocratic tactics to rush the deal through parliament. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
Taiwan's embattled government is appealing to the public, not to join a strike called by students opposing the trade deal with the mainland. Officials have also denied using excessive force against protesters. ATV's Emily Sue reports.
After last night's violent clashes at the Taiwanese government headquarters in Taipei, the island's president Ma Ying-jeou held an emergency meeting this morning with his top officials to discuss the crisis. Premier Jiang Yihua later called the violence regretful and heartbreaking. He shot down accusations of excessive force, insisting police had no choice but to take action. Opposition to the cross-strait trade deal at the center of the crisis was not an excuse to paralyze the execution of the government's duties, he said. Jiang dismissed comparisons between the protests and the Tiananmen Square crackdown on student protesters in 1989, calling it a gross distortion. More than 100 people were injured in the clashes. About half were police and the rest were protesters. Many suffered head injuries, which they claimed were caused by officers' batons. This demonstrator complained that police went too far when they hit him with batons, which caused a 1.5-centimeter gash on his head. The chairman of the opposition Democratic Progressive Party visited the injured in hospital. Su Tseng-Cheng condemned President Ma for not properly addressing the protesters' concerns sooner to avoid violence. This morning, demonstrators made their way from the government compound back to the parliament building a block away, where hundreds have been camped out since Tuesday night. Hundreds of them are still occupying the main chamber, which they've barricaded from inside since last Tuesday. Students from 28 groups condemned the violence today, calling on police not to abuse their power and further escalate tensions. They're also calling for an island-wide strike from students and businesses, demanding the administration reject the trade agreement. The government is appealing to its citizens not to heed the call for a strike. But for the moment, a similar crackdown to clear those at the parliament compound is unlikely, as the government appears to be leaving it to the politicians to sort this one out. Emily Sue, ATV News.
Local news now. In a worrying defeat for the Democratic Party, one of its veteran lawmakers has lost a district council by-election to an untested pro-Beijing rival. The loss has also exposed the growing rift between the Democrats and their radical allies, which is benefiting their rivals. There was relief for Judy Chan of the New People's Party when she was declared winner in the Southern District Council by-election. Just seconds earlier, Erica Yoon, chairwoman of the Radical People Power Party, burst into tears, thinking she had won after it was announced that she had secured 1,083 votes. But the euphoria was premature as Chan, her pro-business rival, received 2,023 votes. Veteran Democratic Party legislator Sin Chung-kai trailed in third with only 920 votes. The results in the South Horizon's West constituency were announced shortly after midnight at a community center where the ballots were counted when polling ended at 10:30 last night. Just over half of the 7,600 registered voters cast their ballots for the seat vacated by former Democratic Party member Andrew Fung, who angered the Pan-Democrats by applying for a government job and taking over as the chief executive's information coordinator. For the Democratic Party, it was the loss of a seat to a pro-Beijing rival party, but it was also evidence of a growing rift in the Pan-Democratic camp. Despite losing, Yoon said she hailed her performance as a victory because she received more ballots than the Democratic Party candidate.
預計都係得20%票，仲係要好
Green claimed that people are leaning more towards her radical party and are forsaking the moderate Democrats, who are seen as having sold out. People Power has accused the Democrats of betraying their cause after reaching a compromise with the government, which led to the creation of the super seats in the 2012 LegCo elections. Since then, the Radical Party has challenged the Democrats in district council polls. Sin, who finished far behind the winning candidate in South Horizons West, described the result as unexpected and a very bad loss. He said political issues such as the debate over nominations for the next chief executive election, his own campaign style and Feng's controversial move to join the government may have contributed to his defeat. The lawmakers said the Democratic Party will conduct a thorough evaluation of the results. The winning candidate, who secured more votes than the total of her two pan-Democrat rivals, attributed her victory to her devotion to issues in the district. Chan described herself as a low-profile candidate who had to work extra hard to beat her better-known opponents. The government has denied shirking its responsibility by leaving it up to district councils to deal with shopfront extensions that block pavements. Here's Emily Sue.
Many store owners battling high rents have tried to maximize space by placing products outside their premises, a practice which blocks pavements. This has triggered a flood of complaints about road access and safety. A 4-month consultation on measures to tackle shopfront extensions was launched 10 days ago, and its proposals include a $1,500 fixed penalty for shop owners who obstruct pavement space. Legislators on the Home Affairs panel today slammed the guidelines in the consultation document as unclear and unfair. They argued that the proposals leave it to district councils to recommend which shops should be punished or exempted if its distinct characteristics contribute to the area's vibrancy. Cultural sector lawmaker Ma Feng-kwok warned that the government could face greater trouble by tolerating some stores and not others. Currently, some flower shops are allowed to use up to a meter of storefront space during the Lunar New Year. Wu Chi-wai of the Democratic Party accused the government of shirking its responsibility by relying on district councils to monitor the problem, pointing out that shop owners and pedestrians will be confused if rules differ from one street to another. Wu wants shops penalized if they block more than 10% of the pavement. Home Affairs Minister Zhang Duxing dismissed the allegation that the government is taking a hands-off approach. He insisted that district councils will only play an advisory role and only the government will have the final say on any exemptions. The consultation ends in mid-July. Emily Sue, ATV News.
More local news, starting with government plans to sell a batch of vacant subsidized flats on Lantau Island, with the cheapest priced at $640,000. Here's Arthur Urquiola.
85 vacant public housing flats in Lung Ting Estate in Tai O will be sold as home ownership scheme units by the middle of the year. The Housing Authority said today the flats, measuring about 480 square feet each, will be converted from public to subsidized housing and sold for between $640,000 and $900,000. The chairman of the authority's subsidized housing group, Wang Yunfai, is confident that all the converted flats will be snapped up. Applications will start in June, and ballots will be drawn in August, with the authority saying the homes will be ideal for retired people who wish to escape the hustle and bustle of the city, or young people who work at home. Legislators on the Environmental Affairs panel say there's a big difference between the amount of imported and exported waste plastics last year. Some claim that as much as 100,000 tons of waste plastics shipped to Hong Kong for reprocessing to increase value may have ended up in the city's 3 landfills. But Environment Undersecretary Christine Low rejected the claim, saying such a discrepancy would have been spotted in the landfill records. She also dismissed suggestions to close the waste plastic recovery trade altogether. The liquid inside these test tubes looks like a luminous chemical used in glow sticks, but it's more than that. This material is called AIE, aggregation-induced emission, and it was invented by researchers at the University of Science and Technology to track cancer cells in the body. Chris Lung, a chemistry researcher, said AIE is more dense than other materials used to monitor cancer cells, and so can stay longer inside cancer cells, even when they start spreading. The liquid is still being tested on animals, but once proven safe for human use, it can help lower medical costs significantly. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
Sports now, and in football. Lionel Messi scored 3 times to help Barcelona beat Real Madrid 4-3 and revive their hopes of remaining Spanish champions. ATV's Bo Leung reports.
Spanish league leaders Real Madrid hosted bitter rivals Barcelona and fell behind after only 7 minutes when Andres Iniesta found the top corner of the net. Karim Benzema then levelled the score by heading in a cross from Angel Di Maria in the 20th minute. The French international put Real in front 4 minutes later, again with the help of Di Maria. But Argentine Lionel Messi equalised for Barca before half-time. When play resumed, Cristiano Ronaldo picked himself up after he was brought down in the box to score with his kick 3-2 to Real. But the tables were turned when Real were reduced to 10 men. Sergio Ramos was sent packing for fouling Neymar. Messi stepped up to take the penalty and levelled the tie. He completed his hat-trick with another penalty in the 84th minute as Barcelona celebrated a 4-3 victory. For Messi, the goals took his tally to 236, making him the second highest scorer in La Liga history. He's also the top marksman in Clásico matches, with 21 goals to his name. Real's neighbour Atletico Madrid defeated Real Betis, who had Brian Rodriguez sent off. Gabi netted Atletico's first of the match in the 58th minute. Diego Costa made it 2-0 shortly after to take the club to the top of the table, with Real slipping to second and Barcelona just 1 point behind them.
Finance news: local shares had their best day in 4 months, closing nearly 2% higher today. The Hang Seng Index gained 409 points to end the session at 21,846 on turnover of $74 billion. Shares of mainland firms listed locally rose on expectations that Beijing may unveil stimulus measures after a weak factory survey. Let's take a look at markets overseas, starting in the US. The Dow Jones is down 55 points. In Europe, the London FTSE is down 41 points. The Frankfurt DAX is down 134 points. The Paris CAC is down 60 points. US dollar cross rates: the euro 1.37, the pound is 1.64, it's 102.25 Japanese yen against the US dollar. The weather forecast for the next few days. Sunny periods tomorrow and misty at night. Temperatures will range from 17 to 24 degrees. Sunny periods with foggy mornings and nights for the rest of the week. Here's a look at the weather around the world. That's all the news for now. Thanks for watching ATV. I'm Edna. Good night.
Coming up, 30 Rock. Tsunami is history, but how is today and tomorrow? Megaquake can provoke devastating volcano explosions and trigger another time of catastrophe. Japan is not the only victim. Scientists go out to meet the new challenge. See how humans can escape the hidden risk. All About Documentary, the next Megaquake, Tuesday night at 10. Stay close to fresh K-pop from the hottest selling artists to the up-and-coming superstars. Keep in touch with the latest chart of the Korean pop music scene on Samsung Digital Special, Pops in Seoul, Thursday at 6:25. When it comes to rice dishes, the choices are countless. These dishes are rare in different countries, but one thing is the same. There must be a big celebration for the heavy harvest. A fruitful year is worth all efforts. All About Documentary, Rice is Life, Thursday night at 10:05.
Don't forget to wash your hands as soon as you come home.
That's right. It's important to maintain personal hygiene and to keep your living spaces clean.
Go, go, go!
Mop your floor regularly with cleanser.
Keep your home clean to keep illnesses away.
Remember to use 1 part household bleach with 99 parts water to clean your building's public areas.
Yes, finish! A clean home is a healthy home.
Find out Britain's top antiques enthusiast. To be one step closer to becoming an antiques master. Contestants are eager to show their talents. Now, the competition starts. Antiques Master, Series 1, Friday night at 9. Soccer Fever, Amazing March, live on World Channel. Watch the live show on your phone and ATV website.
The following program contains occasional adult elements. Parental guidance is recommended.
Look at this. The writers put it on my door.
I don't know what that's referring to.
It's referring to this one time that I got a chemical peel before work, and I was wearing a red and green sweater and a fedora. But these douche-bees have been doing this for weeks.
Les Lemon.
First thought.
Winona Ryder in 100 years.
Weak.
Fart Barfunkel.
Indian food.
Paul Simon.
I don't get that, but it hurts. Look, I love a good joke, but I am their boss, and at a certain point, it crosses a line. To quote Rodney Dangerfield, hey,
Lemon, if you're about to say that you don't get any respect, you're right. I mean, in a post-apocalyptic world, how would society even use you?
Traveling bard.
Radiation canary. I have to run, Lemon. I have an appointment in Washington. The hearings on the Cabletown NBC deal are underway, and the company has entrusted me to be their front man.
Hey, will you ask Congress where they put the USA Network? I've been trying to find Monk for like 3 months.
The only thing I will be discussing with the House Subcommittee on Baseball, Quiz Shows, Terrorism, and Media is vertical integration.
What's vertical integration?
Imagine that your favorite corn chip manufacturer also owned the #1 diarrhea medication.
That'd be great, because then they could put a little sample of the medicine in each bag.
Keep thinking.
Except then they might be tempted to make the corn chips give you...
vertical integration.
Wow, that should not be allowed to happen.
But it's my job to make sure that it does happen. Do you know who gets elected to Congress these days? Former athletes, washed-up actors, and, women. I'm locked and loaded and ready for whatever these beltway lobotomites throw at me.
What if we have to stay overnight and there aren't enough rooms, so we have to share a room, and I forgot to bring a shirt to sleep in, and the stores are all closed?
Liz, quick question about the Johnny Appleseed sketch. Does it hurt it if we can't call him Johnny Appleseed?
Yes, why?
Well, Johnny Appleseed was a real guy, and his descendants are very litigious. So here is a list of the names that legal says we can use. Jerry Banana Seed, and nothing else.
Great. So what are my choices? Either I argue with legal or I spend all day writing something else. Does anyone care how hard I work?
We can't use Jerry Banana Seed. Someone with that name killed a bunch of nurses in Portland.
Kenneth, you're back. I need you to get me something called Vagitrax. It's for dry knees.
I wish I were back, Miss Maloney. I'm reapplying to the PAGE program, but it's a lot harder than my first time around. It's gotten really competitive. You should have seen what I saw in Mr. Wienerslave's office.
Well, your interview will be Thursday. Is there any AV equipment you'll be needing?
Equipment?
Inside Schwartz, 21. Hill Street Blues, Wings is fun. Golden Girls, Quantum Leap. Outsourced is the new friends.
The process used to be dignified. Now it's just a pageant.
Just a pageant? That's like saying a guy is cool because he has just a speedboat. If you need help winning a pageant, you've come to the right place.
Well, if it'll get me back into the PAGE program.
When I was pageantizing, my mother told me there's only 3 things standing between you and winning. Your breasts and wanting it bad enough.
I'm not sure that applies.
We've already started.
And this deal will count as a 39% bump variable against an 11% increase of synchronized flexibility.
Sir, my name is Rob Reiner. And before I became a congressman, I dabbled in television, won a couple of Emmys. And I believe that my experience out there in Hollywood gives me a special insight into these types of deals, particularly when it comes to,
say it, meathead.
Vertical integration.
Ah, the dreaded VI. Bad for America, kills innovation, drives up prices. Is that it? I guess that's why Big Oil and Microsoft are such great American failures.
What?
Dare I say, vertical integration drives down prices by streamlining the process. Consider the farmer. He owns his land, the equipment he uses to harvest his crops, the truck he uses to drive that